Listen up, Bills Mafia. This is not a drill. And we need to talk about what could be the move that saves our season right now. The Ed Oliver injury absolutely crushed us. There's no sugarcoating it. Our defensive anchor went down with a torn bicep, and we're staring down the barrel of a potential Super Bowl run without one of our most dominant forces in the trenches. But here's where things get exciting, and why Brandon Beane needs to be on the phone with Tennessee right this second. Because Sebastian Joseph Day is sitting there in Nashville on a sinking Titan ship, and he's exactly what we need to plug this massive hole that just opened up on our defensive line. Let's be real here, Bills Mafia. When Ed went down against Carolina clutching that bicep, we all felt it in our gut. That sinking feeling when you know something catastrophic just happened to your season. Oliver's been an absolute monster. When healthy this year with 3 sacks in basically 2.5 games, he was on an absolute tear-making, game-changing plays like that forced fumble on Derrick Henry that basically won us the Ravens game in week 1. And now he's done until potentially the playoffs. If we're lucky enough to make that deep run, he's promising on Instagram when he said he'll be back just in time to play for it all. But we can't just sit around and hope we can survive without interior defensive line help until January. We need reinforcements now. And Joseph Day is the perfect veteran addition that checks every single box we need. Here's why this move is absolutely brilliant and needs to happen before the trade deadline passes us by. Sebastian Joseph Day brings 7 years of NFL experience to the table with 96 games played and 85 starts. This dude has been around the block and knows exactly what it takes to win at the highest level. He's got a Super Bowl ring from his time with the Rams when they beat Cincinnati in Super Bowl 56. So he understands what championship football looks like, and that veteran presence is invaluable when you're trying to make a deep playoff push in the brutal AFC. Plus, he's showing out this season with the Titans, even though they're a dumpster fire at 3 wins and 5 losses. He's put up 25 tackles through 8 games with 4 tackles for loss and a sack. Those might not be eye-popping numbers, but remember, this guy is playing on one of the worst teams in football, and he's still producing at a solid level. Imagine what he could do surrounded by Vaughn, Miller, Greg Rousseau, and the rest of our defensive studs. The financial situation actually works perfectly in our favor too, and this is where Beane's cap wizardry comes into play. Joseph Day is on a 1-year deal worth $5 million for the 2025 season, which is totally workable, even with our tight cap situation. Yeah, we'd have to shuffle some money around and maybe restructure a contract or two, but that's standard operating procedure for playoff contenders at the deadline. We've done it before, and we'll do it again. The beauty of this being a rental situation is that we're not committing long-term money to a 30-year-old defensive tackle. We're bringing in a proven veteran for this championship window for this season, where we have Josh Allen in his absolute prime and a legitimate shot to finally break through and win the whole damn thing. You don't let cap concerns stop you from making moves when you're 5-2 and staring down the Chiefs this weekend in what might be the biggest regular season game we've had in years. Let's talk about the fit from a scheme perspective, because this is where it gets even better. Joseph Day is exactly the type of run-stuffing interior presence that can help shore up our defensive line after we've been dealing with injuries to Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones missing time, and TJ Sanders being out. We've been absolutely depleted in the trenches and asking guys like Larry Ogunjobi and rookie Deon Walker to carry way too much of the load. Joseph Day brings that balance between run defense and pass rush that Sean McDermott's defense desperately needs. Pro Football Focus had him rated as a top 10 run defender among interior defensive linemen last season when he played all 17 games for Tennessee. And while the Titans' defense was horrible overall, ranking 30th in scoring, they were actually 2nd in the entire NFL against the run. That tells you everything you need to know about what Joseph Day can do when it comes to clogging lanes and eating up blocks so our linebackers can flow freely to make tackles. The timing of this potential trade couldn't be more perfect either, and the urgency cannot be overstated. We're hosting the Kansas City Chiefs this Sunday in what's basically a measuring stick game to see if we're real Super Bowl contenders or just another good team that's going to fall short when it matters most. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are coming to Highmark Stadium, and you better believe they're going to try to establish the run game with Isaiah Pacheco, and then hit us with play action when we're selling out to stop Mahomes from making magic happen. We need a stout interior defensive line to collapse the pocket and prevent Kansas City from having their way with us up front. And then after the Chiefs game, we've got a gauntlet of a schedule where Every single game matters in the AFC playoff race. We can't afford to let our defensive line deficiencies cost us games down the stretch when we're fighting for home field advantage and trying to avoid having to go through Baltimore or Kansas City on the road in January. Tennessee is absolutely going to be sellers at the deadline after they fired their head coach midseason, which is basically waving the white flag on 2025. They're sitting at 3 wins and 5 losses in a loaded AFC South, and they know they're headed for a top 5 draft pick. They need to be thinking about the future and unloading veterans on expiring contracts who won't be part of their rebuild. Sebastian Joseph Day fits that profile perfectly. He's 30 years old and his contract is up after this season, so the Titans have zero incentive to keep him around. When they're not competing for anything meaningful this year, they should be looking to accumulate draft picks and get younger, which means Bean should be able to get Joseph Day for a reasonable price, maybe a 5th-round pick or even a 6th-rounder, considering the circumstances. That's highway robbery for a proven veteran who can step in and contribute immediately for a team with legitimate Super Bowl aspirations. Think about what this does for our entire defensive structure too. We get Joseph Day in here, and suddenly we've got real depth at defensive tackle even with Oliver out. You can rotate Joseph Day with Ogunjobi and Walker to keep everyone fresh. You're not asking any single player to carry an impossible workload. And when we get into those critical December and January games, when the weather turns brutal here in Buffalo and games are won and lost in the trenches, we'll have the horses up front to impose our will on opposing offenses. Just imagine the 2025 playoff run with a healthy defensive line rotation that includes Ed Oliver potentially coming back for the postseason, Sebastian Joseph Day providing veteran stability, and our young guys like Walker continuing to develop and contribute. That's a dominant interior that can go toe-to-toe with anyone in the AFC, including the Chiefs' offensive line that's been protecting Mahomes so well this season. We also can't ignore the leadership and mentorship factor here. Joseph Day has been a starter on playoff teams and Super Bowl contenders. He knows what it takes to navigate the pressure of January football. Having him in the locker room working with guys like Deone Walker, who's a rookie and still learning the NFL game, would be absolutely invaluable. Walker has shown flashes of being really good, but he's also had some rookie moments where the game moves too fast. Having a veteran like Joseph Day who can teach him the little things about hand placement, leverage, reading offensive line combinations, and all those nuances that separate good NFL defensive tackles from great ones. That's the kind of investment that pays dividends not just this season, but for years to come as Walker develops into hopefully our future anchor on the defensive line. The window is now Bills Mafia, and we all know it. Josh Allen is playing at an MVP level. Our offense is absolutely humming, with James Cook running wild for 200+ yards against Carolina. Our defense has the talent to be elite if we can just get healthy and get the right pieces in place. And we're in the thick of the AFC race with a chance to potentially secure a first-round bye if we can take care of business down the stretch. You don't let opportunities like this slip away because you're worried about giving up a mid-round draft pick or shuffling some cap money around. Brandon Beane has shown time and time again that he's willing to be aggressive when the situation calls for it. Remember when we traded for Von Miller? Remember when we went out and got Stephon Diggs? Those were bold moves that showed we're committed to winning now. And trading for Sebastian Joseph Day would be another chess move that demonstrates to Josh Allen and the rest of this team that the front office is all in on bringing a championship to Buffalo. The ripple effects of adding Joseph Day go way beyond just replacing Oliver's production too. When you have a solid rotation up front, it completely changes what defensive coordinators can do with their game planning. You can be more aggressive with blitz packages because you trust your interior line to hold up in one-on-one situations. You can ask your linebackers to fly around and make plays instead of having to worry about gap integrity because your defensive tackles are getting pushed around. You can take more chances in coverage because you know you're getting consistent pressure up the middle that forces quarterbacks to make quicker decisions and potentially make mistakes. Everything is connected on defense, and it all starts with the guys in the trenches. If we can stabilize that defensive tackle position with a Joseph Day addition, suddenly our entire defense elevates and we become exponentially harder to score on. Let's also address the elephant in the room about whether Joseph Day is good enough to make a real difference. Because some people might look at his stats this year and say 25 tackles and 1 sack isn't exactly setting the world on fire, but context matters tremendously here. This dude is playing on a 3-win Titans team that's getting blown out regularly and spending most of their defensive snaps on their heels trying to survive rather than attacking. NFL defensive tackles on bad teams don't put up huge sack numbers because they're facing constant double teams and chip blocks while opposing offenses are playing with leads and running the clock out. Put that same player on a Bills team that's winning games and playing with leads where opposing offenses have to throw the ball and take chances, and suddenly those pass rush opportunities open up way more. We saw this exact scenario play out with Von Miller when he came. Here, his production didn't always show up in the stat sheet because teams were scheming away from him, but his presence made everyone else better, and that's exactly what Joseph Day would do for us. The trade deadline is literally hours away, and there's genuine buzz around the league that teams are going to be active. We know the Bills are in the market for help, particularly at wide receiver, but also potentially on defense. And while everyone's focused on whether we're going to add another pass catcher for Josh Allen, the smart money says we need to address the defensive tackle position. With Ed Oliver done for the regular season, Tennessee is taking calls on their veterans. Joseph Day makes perfect sense from every angle you look at it. The talent is there, the experience is there, the scheme fit is there, the contract is workable, and the Titans have every reason to move him for draft capital. This should be a no-brainer deal that gets done, and when it happens, Bills Mafia is going to lose their minds because we'll know that our front office is doing everything possible to maximize this championship window. This is the kind of move that championship teams make. They identify needs, they act decisively, and they don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Would we prefer to have Ed Oliver healthy for the entire season? Obviously yes, but we don't live in that reality. We live in a reality where our best defensive lineman is on injured reserve until potentially the Super Bowl, and we need to find solutions immediately. Sebastian Joseph Day is that solution. He's a proven veteran who can step in from day one and contribute meaningful snaps in our defensive line rotation. He won't try to do too much or be something he's not. He'll just come in and do his job at a high level, which is exactly what this team needs. We don't need a superstar. We need a reliable professional who understands his role and executes it consistently week after week. That's Joseph Day to a T. The beauty of this potential acquisition is that it also protects us against further injury issues down the line. God forbid something happens to Ogunjobi or one of our other interior guys, we'd be in absolute crisis mode if we don't add depth now. By bringing in Joseph Day, we're creating insurance for ourselves while also upgrading the overall quality of our defensive tackle room. It's a win-win situation that makes us deeper, more experienced, and better equipped to handle whatever comes our way. Over the final 10 games of the regular season, plus hopefully a deep playoff run, championship teams build depth and have quality backups at every position. And right now we're dangerously thin at defensive tackle, which is a huge problem that needs to be addressed before it's too late. Look at what the Chiefs have done over the years. They're always adding pieces at the trade deadline to shore up weaknesses and put themselves in the best possible position to win another Super Bowl. We need to have that same mentality, that same killer instinct that says we're gonna do whatever it takes to bring a championship to Buffalo. Our fans have waited long enough. They've suffered through 4 straight Super Bowl losses in the 90s. They've endured playoff heartbreak after playoff heartbreak in this recent run. And we're sitting here with one of the best quarterbacks in football and a legitimately talented roster that can compete with anyone. Don't let this opportunity slip away because you weren't willing to make a move for a veteran defensive tackle who can help stabilize the most important position group on your defense right now. The clock is ticking, Bills Mafia. The trade deadline is coming fast, and we need Brandon Beane to pick up that phone and make this deal happen with Tennessee. Sebastian Joseph Day should be wearing red, white, and blue. He should be getting ready to play at Highmark Stadium in front of the greatest fans in sports. He should be part of this special team that's trying to do something historic and bring the first Super Bowl championship to Buffalo. Every day that passes without making this move is a day wasted when we could be integrating a quality veteran into our system and getting him ready to contribute against Kansas City this Sunday. The time for action is now, not next week, not after we lose another defensive tackle to injury, but right now, while we still have time to make a difference and set ourselves up for success. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss any Bills Mafia content as we navigate this critical stretch of the season. Smash that like button if you agree that Brandon Beane needs to go get Sebastian Joseph Day before the trade deadline. And drop a comment below letting me know what you think. Should the Bills trade for Sebastian Joseph Day? Yes or no? Let's get this discussion going. Bills Mafia, our voices matter, and the front office is always paying attention to what the fan base wants. Let's make some noise and show them that we're ready to go all in on winning a championship this year.